Welcome to the Creativity, Thinking, and Education Podcast with your host, Patricia Rose Upsack. Welcome back. Today we will be talking to the remarkable and wonderful John Kremer. This interview is in 2 parts, and next week will be the second part. John is a wonderful book marketing expert. And we are very excited to be welcoming John Kremer. Hello, John.
Hello.
John is an expert on book publishing and marketing. Besides being the owner of a publishing company, Open Horizons, in Taos, New Mexico, he is the editor of the Book Marketing Tip of the Week newsletter. John is the founder of the Book Marketing Network social network for book authors and publishers, as well as the Institute on Book Publishing Innovations. As a book promotion expert, John is the author of a number of books on publishing, marketing, and including 1001 Ways to Market Your Books for Authors and Publishers, which I hear you're going to have a new edition coming out in the fall.
Yes, I'm still actively working on it, but it's been a real challenge and a lot of fun to do. I'm amazed at how good it is.
It's wonderful. No, I mean, I have 2 different editions, and what, you have like 10 editions or something? How many? 6?
Six editions.
6
this will be the 7th.
Right,
there was a 6.5 edition, but
but then things started moving so fast you had to completely change it, right?
Well, I just had to update it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not done with this bio, everybody. So, also the Complete Direct Marketing Sourcebook, the High Impact Marketing on a Low Impact Budget, and Celebrate Today. He has also designed the Do-It-Yourself Book Publicity Kit. This makes me tired, John, just reading all this. Book Marketing Mega MultiMedia Program, and the 15,000 Eyeball Internet Marketing Program, which I took a whole weekend workshop with you on that one. It was wonderful.
Right.
And now, of course, I understand half of what you presented, but this was 5-6 years ago? I was like, oh, okay. So you're always, I have to say, you're always on the cutting edge. You're right in the front of where the mainstream is. You really are fascinating. So John, I have a list also here that we're going to talk about your newest project, which is called Book Marketing 411 for authors, as well as anything else that you want to talk about.
That's great. The Book Marketing 411 is right now available in ebook format only on Amazon. I'm going to do a print on demand soon, and also a PDF version.
Uh-huh.
And it's basically an excerpt of the new edition of 1001 Ways, part of it, a short edition, about 160 pages, and with some new added material that wasn't in previous editions. So I like it. I hope other people like it. It was fun to create some mini editions that I could sell for a lower price to audiences.
So I could download that on my iPad, for example, from Amazon as a Kindle edition?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. I need all the help I can get, and you've always been very helpful.
Yeah, and there's some new stuff in there that I really like. I'm always creating new content on my various websites. So some of that new content is going into the new edition of the book. Plus, I've really cleaned up the book. So much has changed since the last edition, which the 6.5 edition was in 2008. So that's 7 years ago.
Right.
And, what is new since then? I forget when Facebook came out. I think that was in 2006. YouTube, I think it was in 2005 or 4.
Right.
So the whole world of the Internet has changed marketing incredibly.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, I remember back in the early 1990s, I was giving away those AOL discs just to get people online because
I actually remember that. I've known you that long because
I got so many of those free. I just gave them away every time I did a seminar or a talk. because I wanted to give authors online because it was the first viable way for authors to reach an international audience. And, of course, nowadays with the Internet, the international audience is a real meaningful audience. I mean, I interact with people from around the world every day now via Facebook, via my website, via email, my newsletter, et cetera, et cetera. It's really made a difference. And, now with Kindle, and ebooks, anybody can download it anywhere. I mean, shipping is still expensive if they want to buy a print version.
Right.
But if they want the ebook version, boom, they've got it, and it's there.
I know.
And no shipping costs, and it really makes a difference because a lot of us have books that really can appeal to a wide audience.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And, now we really have an international audience that, 20 years ago you would not have been able to reach at all.
Right, that's true. I'm going to ask you a couple of times through this interview to tell everybody your website because it really is probably one of the best websites I have ever seen. And it's just full of so much information. So would you tell us the name of it, please?
Well, I actually have two main websites now, and
that's
I'm
all right.
sort of transitioning them. One is the Bookmarket.com website, which I've had for over 20 years.
Uh-huh.
And then there's the BookmarketingBestsellers.com, which is where a lot of my new content, my blogging, it's really my blog. But I've been transitioning some of my content from Bookmarket.com to the BookmarketingBestsellers.com.
Uh-huh. Okay,
so,
all right.
I'm sort of schizophrenic now, I guess you could say.
Actually, I completely understand because my webmaster is taking, because I have two websites, and he's doing something that I don't actually understand, which is why I have a webmaster and not me trying to do it, because I'm not technical, and those of you who are very lucky. Anyway, he's doing something about creating, it's like a different website title and parking the other two URLs under that. Now, that doesn't make any sense to me, but he says then that way, no matter what website people go to, they'll end up at the same place.
Yeah, actually you can do that now with, it's very easy. I used to have my johnkremer.com and a johnkremer.net that went to different specific pages under my bookmarket.com website.
Uh-huh.
And then somehow I did not get my renewal notices, and they expired, and somebody bought them right away and wanted to sell them to me for $1,000.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not. So somehow I missed a renewal notice, and I lost control of my own name, which I didn't like.
No, that's odd. Well.
Yeah, they might be available now. Somebody might not. I've gotten tired of paying for them, but they weren't that. I didn't promote them that much anyway. But there are people that squat on all some really good website names that and I hate those people. I know that they're just making use of a loophole, but it's I think it's a nasty way to make a living.
Right. Well, it's really funny because my business has been around since, almost 19 years now. And I went and did a thing but I didn't use the name Synchronicity Publishing on the website. I used something else. I mean, the website, the material is Synchronicity Publishing, LLC, but in terms of the URL, I wasn't smart and I didn't use that name. So I went and I did a thing in Chicago a couple of times, and this man kept showing up, and he got really angry with me because I had a big booth in Synchronicity Publishing and all kinds of cool stuff, and I was very proud of myself. And he said, "You can't use this name. I have this name. How long have you been in business?" "I've been in business 4 years." And I looked at him and laughed, and at that point it had been like 15 years. I said, 15 years? And he goes, "Really?" He goes, "But when I registered the name in Illinois, you didn't pop up." And I said, "That's because it's registered in Colorado." And I didn't realize that, if you register it in one state, somebody else can have the same name in another state. So
yeah, and they can. And, that's one of the things. But, and I always try when I'm working with authors and working on a book title, I always try to get titles where they can own the URL, which
smart.
I think is important because that just gives you greater control over your intellectual property. And but it's not always possible to do nowadays because so many of the good names have been squatted on.
Right.
And
that's true.
but and so I usually avoid those names. But you can still come up. It's still possible to come up with good names, even if people are squatting. But boy,
well, especially if you're creative, which is a part of what this summit is all about. So
yes. Well, and I think it's important. I think it's really important to have a good, brandable title, a memorable title for your book, because 80% of books are sold by word of mouth, and if you don't have a good title that people can remember, I remember, it must have been about 10 years ago now, Stephen King was writing a column for, I think it was Entertainment Weekly, and he wrote about this one book, and he said, it's such a great book, but nobody can remember the title. And then, and then about 3 weeks later, I read in Publishers Weekly that the publishers, in talking about it within their sales meetings and so on, kept calling it the office novel because none of them could remember the title.
That's not a good sign.
And and I'm going, okay, we can see that there's a major problem here, and the poor author, they were a victim of the publisher. I'm sure they probably had a good title, but sometimes they don't. That's why I offer a book titling service where I help people come up with good titles, because a title is so crucial when you're thinking that 80% of books are sold by word of mouth, and the only way that word of mouth can happen is if people can remember your title.
Right.
If they have to call it something else, it says it's a great book. I don't remember the title, but the author is so and so.
Yeah, no, that doesn't work very well.
Then it's possible, but if they don't remember the author's name, then they can't pass it on.
It's true.
And
well, I have to say that's interesting because some of the people that are looking at the variety of people that we have on this telesummit, they said, now John Kremer, why do you have John Kremer on there? Isn't he like a book marketing person? And I said yes. And when I used to go to the Book Expo in New York, where every time I went, I saw you there when we were either at Marilyn McGuire's booth or Marilyn Ross and the Span. Remember the Span group? We were always there. Well, one of the things that really surprised me, and it did surprise me, is a very high percentage of the authors that I met, I would say close to 70%, had at some point in their life been teachers first. And I think teachers are very creative people, but I also think that a lot of teachers start writing or getting involved in the book world while they're still teaching, and to be honest with you, most of them have no clue how to market their work at all. And I thought John would be perfect because he could point them in the right direction. And even just talking about, your 1001 ways how to market books. It's an amazing book. It really is. And it's huge. How many pages is it?
Well, the last edition was 704 pages. The current edition is around 785 pages right now, and I don't know how big it's going to end up being.
You and J.K. Rowling's, right?
Yeah. I wish I had her billions.
She's fascinating. I like her. Okay, so let's pretend that some of the people that are listening to this are teachers, and they have just finished a book. Is there any process that you could guide them through very quickly? They finished the book, but now they don't have a clue what to do. Do you know what I'm saying? Because
the first thing I would tell them is don't finish the book until you have a clue. I tell.
But you realize that there are a lot of people out there that, especially teachers, who they write. Maybe they write a novel or they write something, and then they have a manuscript at very least, and they don't know what the next steps would be.
I know. What I always recommend to authors in the beginning is, when you have the idea for the book, that's when you should start marketing it. And I really encourage people to start then, not wait until the manuscript is done.
Right.
Because you've wasted a lot of time then. You had a lot of time to build up an audience that you now don't have. So I always recommend that. Start marketing as soon as you have the idea for the book. But now let me answer your question, because I often face the same thing. I even have people come to me not only when they have the manuscript done, but the book is off the press and they printed thousands and thousands of copies. And they're going, whoops, now what do I do? And
well, because nobody understands the hardest part is the marketing, I think.
I think in some ways, for writers, it's the hardest part.
Right.
But, if you passionately love what you're doing, it's not hard. It's just a matter of persistence and, doing something every day to market the book. But the key to marketing is first, with any book or product, is to first, come up with a good brand, come up with a good title. And if you haven't done that yet, that's really crucial, is to take the time to do that. Then you can really start to market it, because then you can start to, create a website and so on. You do in today's world, I think you have to have an online presence.
Right.
Now that, in most cases that's going to be a website, because I really recommend it be a website that you own and control. I do know of authors who have, a website that they put, created on, Blogger, blogspot.com. And some, and that work can be very effective as well, but you don't own it,
Right.
And the same thing is some people just use a Facebook page to market. But the thing is that Facebook keeps changing its rules.
It does, and then, your stuff could be gone.
Yeah, if they don't like something that you said and they think that, let's say you put a Confederate flag on, that's a big issue right now.
Right.
And everybody's saying it's a bad thing. If you had put up a Confederate flag for some reason, who knows why, on your website 2 years ago, it could be gone, on your Facebook page.
Right.
Your whole page could be gone if Facebook decides to, go with the swing of the moment.
Right.
Now, it could be anything you could say, because you never know in today's world what people are going to be offended by. And Facebook says, well, that's, no longer with our rules. We changed them, but, your page no longer fits our rules and we're taking it down. That's why I recommend everybody own their own website.
Right.
But you can do it. You need an online presence, because without it, something that you control, because without it, you don't have a place to send people, to send joint venture partners, to send other authors who want to recommend your book and have people go buy it. I like people to land on my website first before they go to Amazon to buy my book. The main reason for that is that I want their name and email. If you sell just on Amazon, you don't capture their email.
Right.
Now, there's a way around that, of course, and that's built into your book, an offer, somewhere, either in the back of the book or even integrated within the book, where people can go and get a free report or something if they give you their email address.
Oh, okay.
And I do recommend having an email newsletter, even if all you're doing is sharing a quote a week.
Okay.
And I do recommend publishing at least weekly, because people forget you.
Oh, yeah.
They forget you so quickly. I used to have a newsletter, Book Marketing Update, that was a bi-monthly.
I know.
But the thing was that so many people forgot to renew because 2 months went by and they didn't realize they were missing it. And some people would contact me a year later and go, I miss your newsletter. Did you stop publishing it? And I said, no, you stopped subscribing. And I understood and the reason why, and that's because they missed hearing from you on a regular basis. And
right.
even if you wrote a few sales letters and things like that, they'd miss it.
Right.
And that's why I think a weekly newsletter is important. And even for a fiction author, and the thing is, it can be as simple as just sharing a quote a week, something that you like. With fiction authors, you could be sharing a background story about an author. You could be sharing something about your new novel. You could be actually sharing the novel as you write it. Those kinds of things really make a difference. There was one guy that podcast his novel as he was writing it, and by the time he was finished writing the book, he had 80,000 people subscribed to his podcast.
Really?
And so when he approached the publisher and said, look, I'd like to have you publish this book, and they said, who are you? And I said, well, I'm somebody with 80,000 people that listen to this book every week. The publisher said, where can we pay you, and how much money should we send you? That kind of thing. I mean, because he had already built up the audience. And that's why, I say start marketing, when you get the idea, because you can build up the audience and the hunger for your book. Right. And pretty soon people are going, come on, John, finish that book. I want it.
Come on, John, finish that book.
or Betty or Mabel or whoever you are, because, and the neat thing is, if you're building the audience as you're writing the book, it really makes it easier to write the book because, you're getting feedback, you're getting enthusiasm from people, you're getting excitement built up, and all of that makes it easier to sit down to write the book because there's so many things taking our attention nowadays. I mean, even before the Internet, there was a lot of things, but with the Internet, I mean, one of the first things I tell authors is, yes, you should be on most of the social networks, but not for more than 5 minutes a day.
Right, because you can get sucked into the black hole of Facebook.
You can get sucked in so easily. And, I mean, I know people that, I see them online, and I can see that they're spending so much time, and I'm going, when are they creating new stuff?
Right.
When are they creating stuff they can sell?
True. Now, do you have any thoughts about children writing? I mean, I don't know.
Kids writing their own books?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that idea. I mean, I know I have one kid that I interviewed that she was like, I think 10 years old at the time, and she wrote a cookbook for kids.
Oh, okay.
And she was so enthusiastic. I mean, she could go on TV and, she could book any TV show she wanted to because she was a kid writing a cookbook. Right. And she was so good at it because she loved what she was doing. And that's the thing that people pick up on. If you like what you're doing, people are going to pick up on that, and they're going to go, I got to learn more from that person. I got to go to bookmarket.com or bookmarketingbestsellers.com and find out more, or go to whatever website that person has and find out more. Because you're excited, they get excited. And, that's the thing, and that's true for no matter whether you're a nonfiction author, a fiction author, a children's book author, you've written a memoir. If you're excited about it, then it gets conveyed. I mean, I remember when I used to go out speaking and I'd talk to an author and they'd come up to me and I asked them what their book is about, and they'd hang their head and start talking into their chest. And I was going, this isn't working. Your book isn't going to sell, because you haven't convinced me to buy it. Right. You're talking to your chest. You're not talking loudly enough. You're not talking with some excitement. You haven't convinced me at all.
Right.
And so you have to have some passion. If you have the passion, then the marketing is easy because then it's just talking. And so much of today's marketing is really through interviews, online interviews, Google Hangouts, Skype interviews, webinars, teleseminars, things like that. Like this. And if you're enthusiastic, it works out fine. I'm the kind of author that I like nothing better than to hide away in my office and write. So I sympathize with authors that, love to just sit in their attic or in their, wherever they sit and write books, because that's my passion. But I love what I do, so I market because I know that that's the only way that it's going to make a difference in other people's lives.
Right.
And that's
exactly.
true whether or not, you're writing self-help or you're writing a great novel.
Mm-hmm.
A great novel can change people's lives.
Yes, they can.
And it certainly has. I mean, there are novels I've written that just brought me to tears, and I just wanted to go and change the world because of that novel or something like that.
Well, what's interesting to me is that years ago, and now it's been actually a long time ago, people were, because I was a teacher for 23 years in a high school, and people would be complaining, kids just don't read today. And I'd say, yeah, they do, but they want to read things that are interesting. And, and they're not going to read something that you tell them to read. It's got to be something that captures their imagination and, like a world. Well, right around the same time, J.K. Rowling's first Harry Potter book came out. And I watched kids that literally, they used to tell me that, what's the word, it's not bibliophobia, where you're afraid of books, or there's another one that you're afraid of libraries. Well, they used to tell me all the time that they were real bright kids, and that they were afraid of libraries, and they were afraid of books. Well, I got Harry Potter books, and I didn't tell them read them, but they started reading them. And once they got involved in her world, because that's what it was, it's a total imaginary world, right. They couldn't get enough of Harry Potter stuff.
I know.
What I watched,
every new book came out,
they couldn't wait, yeah. And they got to the point, and when you look at it, she made up vocabulary words, she made up Hogwarts, she made up this whole complete environment that's very, very creative. But I think the other thing that it did was that, A, it captured the imagination of the kids. It gave them a sense that they had some kind of power, because it gave kids, the little wizards, it gave them power. They could be wizards. They could change the situations in their world. All of those different kinds of things. And then some study just came out that said that actually they found that kids who read and learn about the whole Harry Potter series are more compassionate than the average kid, that they start to develop a sense of compassion. Now, I don't know why, but I do know that for all those people that said kids today don't read, they should have watched them carrying around these, 600- and 700-page books, and they were reading them, and so I think, whether people like Harry Potter or not, I think she did a huge service, for all of those kids to give, because what happened was it captured their imagination. And, it gave them a sense of what's possible, and help them use their imagination.
And the kids sold the books to each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it became such a phenomenon, that every kid, you had to buy the book and read it, because your friends were all buying it and reading it and building worlds and talking about it and so on and so forth, that it just sold more and more copies. Often when you get a series like that, the new book sells less in many cases, because, less and less people get enthusiastic about it or something like that. But with Harry Potter, it just sold more and more and more books as each edition came out, because there were more and more kids that had become invested in the series, and they had to read it. Right. And so it was a great thing for dispelling that notion that kids would not read. Right. And, exactly. Probably even around that time there was the Goosebumps series. That's true. That was also selling. Would have like 6 or 7 books on the bestseller list at the same time.
Thank you for joining me here at the Creativity, Thinking, and Education podcast. Next week, we will listen to the rest of this interview with the wonderful John Kremer, and he has even more book marketing tips for all of us. Please visit us at happyteachershappystudents.com. And if you find value in this podcast and the message that we are trying to spread, then click the subscribe button and give my show a review, hopefully a good one. I am so excited to be able to share the timeless awareness of all of our guests with you. Thank you. Goodbye.